We've all been there. Middle of the night and you hear a sudden thud. Your mind races. Is it a burglar, a ghost, or maybe it's just Mothra? But usually we calm down and realize it's just our house making random sounds. We feel secure within our four walls. But what if I told you that for some people, their own homes pose more danger than anything on the outside? Join us for a quick peek into 15 of the world's most dangerous places to live. Number 15, Solvay Hut. You know the Matterhorn, right? It's one of those mountains that gets on postcards a lot. And perched right on this crazy cliff edge, there's this little gem called the Solvay Hut. This neat little shack was built way back in 1917. Think about it, that's during World War I. It was designed to be a sort of safety net for climbers. Now this hut, it has got a cool backstory. You see, it's named after this guy, Ernest Solvay. Solvay was a big-time Belgian chemist, but not just that, he was also a generous dude who put his money where his mouth was. So the hut got named after him. This little hut can squeeze in 10 people, not exactly a 5-star hotel, but it's got some basics. A radio and some supplies. But it's not the kind of place you'd want to bunk in for a fun weekend. Why? Well, it's meant for emergency stuff. To get there, you gotta climb this gnarly ridge, the Hornley Ridge. What's nuts is that the Solvay Hut is way up there. We're talking about an altitude of 4,003 meters. At that altitude, it gets freaking cold, sometimes even dropping below minus 20 degrees centigrade. The air's so thin that it's got less than half the pressure you'd find at sea level. The place is often hammered by nasty winds, snow, and ice. Oh, and watch out for those rock falls. You're basically hanging out on a super steep and narrow ridge. You can't see this little hut from the valley down below, but if you're chilling at the Hornley Hut, which is about 700 meters lower on the same ridge, you can catch a glimpse of it. Number 14, Wazoko Apartments. All right, so after that mountainous adventure, let's head over to Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Our destination, the Wazoko Apartments. These are not your average apartments. They're like a big whoa in the world of architecture. These wickedly cool apartments were dreamed up by this bunch called MVRDV. They're a Dutch architecture firm known for thinking way outside the box. They built these babies between 94 and 97. The apartments were made specifically for old folks who didn't want to give up their green, spacious living even in their golden years. But here's the deal. The original plot they had to work with only allowed for 87 units. The client, though, just goes, I want 100 units. So what does MVRDV do? They don't just throw their hands in the air. Oh no, they get creative. They decide to just hang 13 extra units off the side of the main building. They made this crazy idea work by using some heavy-duty steel beams. These beams go straight through the super thick walls of the main building to hold up the dangling units. And each unit isn't just a boring box. Oh no, they've got different shapes and sizes. Each one's unique. They've got balconies and these huge windows that overlook a nearby meadow. The creativity doesn't stop at the funky hanging units, though. The southern side of the main building is jazzed up with a bunch of windows and balconies. Each apartment has its own unique vibe thanks to these little touches. Number 13, Mount Hua Temple. Next up, we have Mount Hua in China. Mount Hua, or Shan, is a seriously majestic mountain with 5 main peaks. But the one that stands out is the southern peak, or as the locals call it, the Landing Wild Geese Peak. Why the weird name, you ask? Well, the story goes that wild geese flying back from the south would take a pit stop on this peak. Anyway, the southern peak isn't just famous for being a bird rest stop. It's also the highest of the lot, standing tall at 2,154 meters. Up there, you get a mind-blowing view of the surrounding mountains and valleys. But before you start dreaming about these breathtaking views, let us tell you, getting there is a whole other story. To get to the southern peak, you have to conquer some seriously steep stairs, and I'm talking vertical here. Oh, and let's not forget the narrow planks and ladders clinging to the cliff face. It's so dangerous that they've got names like the Plank Road in the Sky and the Heavenly Stairs. Now, once you've made it to the top, all sweaty and pumped with adrenaline, there's this little temple waiting for you. It's not just any old temple. It's been there since the Ming Dynasty. That's between 1368 and 1644. It's a place for both Buddhism and Taoism. The location of the temple is dangerous but super thrilling. For those on a spiritual journey, this temple is a sanctuary. a place to meditate and seek enlightenment. But there's this one rock that really steals the show. This chunk of rock has a handprint on it. The story goes that an ancient god created Mount Hua and left his handprint on this rock. Number 12, Sutyagen House. All right, let's now dive into a wild tale of one man's dream run amok as we jump to Russia. Back in 1992, a dude named Nikolai Petrovich Sutyagen, a kind of self-made entrepreneur, got this mad idea in his head. He wanted to build the tallest wooden house in the world. But our guy Nikolai didn't have any formal plans, blueprints, or even a building permit. But he was not fazed. He'd seen these wicked wooden houses in Japan and Norway, and he believed he could do that. So Nikolai got to work and started building, and building, and building. The house kept growing, floor by floor, tower by tower. Before you know it, it was 13 stories and 44 meters high. When asked why, Nikolai simply shrugged and said, "Because I could." But here's where things start going south. Nikolai's towering dream house was not just bending the law, it was also breaking the laws of physics. This beast of a house was built out of scrap wood and metal. No solid foundation, no proper support, nothing. To make matters worse, the town was mostly built of wood, so Nikolai's skyscraper was a giant fire hazard. Fast forward to 2008, the city officials had had enough. They ordered the house to be demolished by February 2009. But even taking this monster down wasn't easy. It was like defusing a ticking time bomb. It could collapse at any moment. They started with the tower, yanked that down first, then picked the rest apart piece by piece, brick by brick. When the dust settled, what was left wasn't a 13-story marvel, but a modest 2-story house, and in 2012, it went up in flames. Number 11, Shadow Cliff. All right, let's shift gears and dive into some modernist architecture in Wisconsin. This place is home to a super rad house called Shadow Cliff. So this guy, Harry Weiss, an architect who was making waves in the 60s, was hired to build this house in 1968. The clients, Ralph and Marion Heinemann, wanted an office and guest house for their estate called West Cliff, which sat on the same property. But Harry gave them something out of this world. This house, Shadow Cliff, it's like something from a futuristic movie. It's a glass box, right? Just hanging off these steel beams that are drilled into the cliffside. The whole thing sticks out over Lake Michigan like some kind of spaceship. From the top of the cliff, you wouldn't even know it's there. The house is designed in such a way that it blends right into the landscape. But inside, you get this killer panoramic view of the lake and the sky. But living in Shadow Cliff is a bit like living in a glass house, literally. The elements, they're all up in your business. Wind, rain, snow, sunshine. You get it all in 4D. And if you're a private person, well, those glass walls aren't exactly your best friend. And guess what? Being suspended over a lake takes its toll. The house needs constant TLC because those steel beams, yeah, they tend to rust and corrode. Getting to the house itself is a mini adventure because it's only accessible by this steep staircase carved right into the rock. And let's not forget the small detail of it possibly collapsing or sliding off the cliff if there's a quake or the cliff decides to erode. Number 10. Hanging Houses of Cuenca. In Cuenca, Spain, there are a bunch of wild houses that look like they're about to take a plunge off a cliff. They're called the Hanging Houses of Cuenca. Now, these aren't your regular houses built on flat ground. These houses are clutching onto the side of a steep cliff overlooking the gorge of the Hua River. When were they built? Well, that's a bit of a mystery. But it's believed that these houses go way back to the 15th century, maybe even earlier. These houses were crafted with wooden beams and stone walls. And get this, they've got balconies that stick out from the facade. Some of these houses also have these really cool Gothic windows and Renaissance doorways. Over the centuries, these cliff-hanging houses have seen their fair share of makeovers. Today, they're not just homes. They've got this super cool museum of Spanish abstract art. Plus, there's a restaurant. And they aren't just some quirky buildings. They're like the poster child of Cuenca, one of the standout symbols of the city. And Cuenca's no ordinary city. It was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1996. Alongside its gravity-defying houses, Cuenca boasts a stunning cathedral, a castle, bridges, and a whole lot of cultural and natural heritage. It's like this amazing mashup of history, art, and nature. Number 9. Hanging Temple of Shan. From hanging houses, we are moving to the mind-blowing Hanging Temple of Hengshan on cliffs of Mount Heng in Shanxi Province. No, it's not a temple that's lost its grip on reality. It's a legit architectural marvel that's been defying gravity for over 1,400 years. The Hanging Temple story begins way back in the 6th century. This monk, Liao Ran, during the Northern Wei dynasty, had this vision. He wanted to build a place that was all about peace and seclusion, perfect for meditation and worship. Now, when we say this temple is hanging, we mean it. It's like a bunch of rooms, 40 in total, all joined together by wooden corridors and bridges. They're dangling off the cliffside, held up by wooden beams that are slotted into holes chiseled straight into the rock face. Some of these beams go as deep as 2 to 3 meters into the rock. The temple is a real work of art with tons of statues of deities and sages from 3 different religions, all made from bronze, iron, terracotta, and stone. And how high is this hanging temple, you ask? It's about 50 meters above the ground. That's about the height of a 15-story building. Being that high up, the temple has got a natural shield from rain and snow thanks to the overhanging rock above. It's also safe from floods and landslides as it's high above the valley floor. Plus, the valley's shaped like a bay, which helps reduce wind erosion. What's really cool about this temple is that it's not just a Buddhist or a Taoist or a Confucian temple. Nope, it's all 3 in one. Number 8. Elliday. Now we're heading to the land of ice and fire, Iceland. Now, Iceland has these cool islands called the Westman Archipelago. And in this group of islands, there's one that's kind of special. It's called Elliday. So Elliday is the 3rd biggest island in the archipelago. It's not huge, though, just about 0.45 square kilometers. But despite its size, it's packed full of intrigue. Now, there's no one living on this island, no humans anyway. But there's this massive colony of puffins. Despite the lack of permanent residents, there are a couple of buildings on the island. There's a small hut that's used for storage and as a workshop. But the real star of the show is this hunting lodge. Built in 1953 by the Elliday Hunting Association, this lodge is where the action's at. But don't expect luxury. There's no electricity, no running water, and definitely no internet connection. It does have propane gas for power and collects rainwater for drinking. Hunters often rent it out when they're on the island to hunt puffins or just to get away from the hustle and bustle of the world. Getting to Elliday isn't too hard. You can catch a boat from Vestmannaeyjar, the main town nearby, which has about 4,000 people. Speaking of our Elliday, it's got a pretty unique shape and some truly jaw-dropping views. It's a hit with photographers and on social media. People even call it the world's loneliest house because of the hunting lodge's isolation and its stark contrast with the cliffs and ocean. Number 7. Houses on stilts. From the lonely island of Elliday in chilly Iceland, let's zip halfway across the world to a tropical paradise, the Maldives. Yeah, that's right. Those stunning islands with super cool houses built on stilts right over the water. Ever wonder why they're built that way? Well, you see, the Maldives is all about preserving its natural beauty and the delicate ecosystem of the islands. Most of these islands are made up of coral reefs. So by building houses on stilts, they're minimizing the impact on land and marine life. It's like living with nature without messing with it. But there's another pretty serious reason for this architectural choice, and that's climate change. You see, with sea levels rising and storms and tsunamis becoming more frequent, the low-lying islands are under constant threat. The Maldives is right at the front line of the fight against climate change. About 80% of its land area is less than a meter above sea level. If the current rate of global warming keeps up, the Maldives could become uninhabitable by 2050. The challenges are massive, from coastal erosion and coral bleaching to food and water scarcity, health risks, and damage to infrastructure. Number 6. Fallingwater House. Have you ever seen a house built right on top of a waterfall? Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what you'll find in Pennsylvania, at a place called Fallingwater House. This place is like something straight out of a modern art painting, and it was dreamt up by none other than Frank Lloyd Wright in 1935. Edgar and Lillian Kaufman, these department store owners from Pittsburgh, visited Wright's studio in Wisconsin. They were super impressed by his work and decided they wanted him to design their weekend retreat. And Wright, being the innovator he is, decides to go one step further and make them feel the waterfall, not just see it from a distance. Wright goes all in with his design, making the house part of the natural surroundings. There are 3 main levels to this place, each of them jutting out from a sandstone core like cantilevered concrete terraces. And guess what? These terraces are right on top of the waterfall on Bear Run. The house even has a guest house and a carport, all tied together with a covered walkway. Innovations all over this place. Wright's got corner windows, skylights, built-in furniture, and natural materials going on. He's even handpicked some sweet pieces of art for the house, like the Mother and Child bronze by Jacques Lipchitz. Now, all this creativity didn't come cheap. When Fallingwater House was finished in 1939, the Kaufmans had spent about $155,000. That was a big leap from the original budget of $35,000, but they loved it, and they used it as their weekend home until 1963. After that, they donated it to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, and it was turned into a museum. But let's get real. Living on a waterfall isn't all fun and games. The house has had its fair share of problems. The concrete terraces started sagging because there wasn't enough reinforcing steel, and the loads were too heavy. At one point in 1995, there was a real risk to the main terrace of collapsing, so they had to go in and strengthen it. Plus, being so close to the waterfall means dealing with water damage and mold. The skylights leak, the stone walls soak up moisture, and the wooden floors are constantly at risk of warping and rotting. The house needs a lot of TLC to keep it from falling apart. And then there was that time in 2017 when a log hit the stone wall of the plunge pool during a flood, dislodging the Lipchitz sculpture. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. One of our subscribers sent us this image and we are holding our breath. They have been wanting to get a new house, and their architect sent them some pretty mind-blowing pictures. One that they couldn't believe was this one, with a house completely upside down. Well, they are not sure how this can work, but the even bigger question is, how? How is this house not falling off the side of the mountain? What is the riskiest house you have ever seen? Remember to comment down below. Number 5, just room enough island. St. Lawrence River, the one that forms part of the border between the US and Canada, is home to the Thousand Islands chain, which has, well, about 2,000 islands. And among these, there's one that's like no other, the Just Room Enough Island. Now, this place doesn't mess around when it comes to living up to its name. It's the smallest inhabited island in the world. We're talking about an area of roughly 3,300 square feet. That's about 1/13 of an acre. It's just big enough for a single house, a tree, and a couple of shrubs. It's like one of those compact city apartments, but without any neighbors, unless you count the occasional fish. The story goes like this. Back in the 1950s, the Size Land family wanted a holiday getaway. So they bought this little island and built a house on it. But they didn't have much room to spare. The house's walls literally touch the edges of the island. And there's a small patch of beach on one side. By the way, the fact that it has a tree growing on it is actually pretty important. In the region, to be officially considered an island, you've got to have at least one tree. So, this place just makes the cut. Now, the Size Lands might have thought they'd bought their own private paradise, a peaceful retreat away from the hustle and bustle. But things didn't quite work out that way. You see, their unique home caught the eye of sightseers and tourists. Before long, they were dealing with boatloads of visitors wanting to check out the tiny island and snap a few pictures. Suddenly, their peaceful retreat wasn't so peaceful. People were getting too close for comfort, and their privacy went out the window. The Size Lands even had to put up signs asking people to keep off their property and respect their privacy. Number 4, Meteora monasteries. Picture this, massive monasteries perched on top of towering rock formations. Sounds surreal, right? Well, welcome to the Meteora monasteries in Thessaly, Greece. When you first lay your eyes on these monasteries, you'll probably wonder how on earth they got there. It's like they're just hanging in the air or floating in the heavens above, which is exactly what Meteora means in Greek. They're a group of 6 Eastern Orthodox monasteries, and they've been standing tall for centuries, right from the 14th century. Back then, it started with hermits and ascetics looking for a peaceful place to meditate and connect with their spiritual side. They found these huge pillars of sandstone and conglomerate and decided to call them home. Living there wasn't easy. The monks had to use ropes and ladders to move up and down the rocks, and they lived in caves or hollows in the rocks. But they loved the solitude and spiritual elevation that came with the place. Eventually, they built small chapels and cells on top of the rocks, and that's how the monastic communities in Meteora started. In the 16th century, the place was buzzing with about 24 active monasteries, filled with hundreds of monks and nuns. But life took a turn in the following centuries. Wars, raids, fires, earthquakes, and societal changes meant many of these monasteries had to be abandoned. Only 6 of them stood the test of time and are still standing tall today. These are Great Meteoron, Varlam, Rusanu, Holy Trinity, St. Nicholas Anapapsis, and St. Stephen. Number 3. Chemisphere House. There's a house that looks more like a UFO than a traditional home, standing on a single concrete column high above the city of Los Angeles. It is not some made-up story. It's real, and it's called the Chemisphere House. This extraordinary piece of architecture was designed by none other than John Lautner. Now, Lautner was a pretty well-known name in American architecture, and he was a student of the legendary Frank Lloyd Wright, the Fallingwater House guy. So back to the Chemisphere House. It's perched on a steep hillside in LA, and it's not your average box-shaped building. The house has this unique octagonal shape that makes it look like a flying saucer just landed on a 30-foot-high concrete column. Inside the house, you've got about 2,200 square feet of space, split into 2 halves by a central brick wall and a cozy fireplace. One half is where all the action happens: the living room, kitchen, and dining room. The other half is where you'd retreat for some quiet. It's got 4 bedrooms and a bathroom. And the icing on the cake? A circular skylight that floods the house with natural light. Now, if you're wondering who'd commissioned such a unique home, meet Leonard Malin. He was a young aerospace engineer when he commissioned the house back in 1960. Despite having a tight budget of just $30,000, Malin wasn't deterred. Lautner, using experimental materials and techniques, managed to bring the construction costs down to $80,000. They got some help from 2 sponsoring companies, Southern California Gas Company and ChemSeal Corporation. The house got its name from the latter company. Oh, and the house is kind of a celebrity in its own right. It's been featured in a bunch of movies and TV shows like Body Double, Charlie's Angels, The Outer Limits, The Simpsons, and Futurama. In fact, it's so famous that it caught the eye of a guy named Benedict Taschen, who's a bigwig in the world of publishing. He bought the house in 1998 and lovingly restored it to its original condition. Number 2. Free Spirit Sphere House. Moving on to Canada, we have a cozy spherical house that's hanging from the trees, swaying gently with the breeze. Sounds interesting? That's exactly what the Free Spirit Sphere House is all about. It's based on this super cool concept called biomimicry. The idea is to look at how nature designs things and then use those patterns to create our own stuff. Here, the spherical shape is the key. Why a sphere, you ask? Well, because it's one of the most resilient shapes in nature. Think about it. It can handle anything from falling branches to the stress from wind, distributing the force evenly across its surface. Plus, the whole house is suspended from a web of ropes, so it moves along with the trees, barely disturbing the forest around it. The Free Spirit Sphere House isn't just about the outside, though. Step inside, and you'll find it surprisingly comfy. Even though it's only around 10 feet in diameter, it can fit up to 2 people. There's a bed, a table, a sink, a microwave, and even a speaker system for some tunes. The entry to the house is pretty unique, too. You've got to climb a spiral staircase and cross a little suspension bridge to get in, and it has windows that give you a stunning 360-degree view of the forest. Can you imagine waking up to that every morning? Number 1. Phoenix House. You've heard about tiny homes, right? Well, we have got one that beats all the others in terms of location. Picture this. A tiny home near one of the most active volcanoes in the world. Yes, the Kilauea volcano. This house, aptly named the Phoenix House, is one for daring hearts. The brain behind Phoenix House is this cool dude named Will Beilhartz. He's the guy who runs Artistry, a company that's all about sustainable tourism and treetop vacation rentals. Now, you might be wondering why it's called the Phoenix House. Remember that legendary bird that rises from its ashes? That's why. This tiny home is a real symbol of rebirth and resurrection, as it's built smack dab in the middle of a lava field. This place was created by a mega eruption in 1990 that basically wiped out the town of Kalapana. Today, the house stands tall on this very lava field, raised on little stilts to leave a minimal footprint on the environment. This house is just as cool on the inside as it is on the outside. The walls are charred wood, made resistant to fire, bugs, and decay, thanks to a centuries-old Japanese technique called shosugiban. The roof? It's covered with recycled rusted metal that matches the color of the lava. Talk about blending in with the surroundings. But the house is off-grid, meaning it's totally powered by solar panels and batteries. It even collects rainwater and has a composting toilet. Despite its small size, it's got a kitchen, a living area, and a bedroom in a loft. The best part? Huge windows that give you a panoramic view of the magnificent landscape. You can actually book this house for a night through Airbnb. It's located in an off-grid community in Kalapana, right at the base of the Kilauea volcano, which has been erupting continuously since 1983. So if you're feeling adventurous, you could cycle 4 miles to see the molten lava drop a whole 100 feet into the ocean. There's also hiking, snorkeling, surfing, and exploring the nearby black sand beach and tide pools. Which one of these was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.